fix it? No, we're still blurry.
Oh, welcome back, everybody, to the show that we have no structure, no real consistency,
We have people that
no
are-
real anything.
Yeah.
But we're having a real good
But we do have
time.
an empty middle seat, and we have a great show for you today. Because today, I mean, what are we going to talk about today?
Fuck, I don't. Can we just start? We are blessed in an era of a lot of shit is going on, so there's a lot of topics, right? But not all fun ones, and not all. And it's like the brevity of so many of these are. It feels life and death.
There's very minimal amount of like lighthearted goofs that can be had nowadays. Like memes are becoming an escape. It's like, oh my god, it's not another terrible news story about some awful thing that happened. It's just like, no, it's like just a little meme. Thank you. I'm gonna send you a heart react just because.
That's all you get.
I scrolled through the Facebook wall at my own risk because I don't know what I'm gonna find. I think I'm informed, but I may not be.
It's like it's random. Like you see bombed countries, and then you see pandemic, and then you see wedding pictures.
It was like one picture. Oh, thank God.
And then they just got a new dog. It was National Dog Day, and I was so conflicted.
I'm still to this day confused as to who made these days. Who decided? What was it about? What August 27th, or 20 was it 26th or 27th? Whatever. That it was like, you know what? A good boy was for sure born at some point in history on this day.
Well, it's also like I feel like there's been 4 National Dog Days this year. It's just like whenever the hashtag gets out there, it's like, fuck it, pause your dog.
Or like, yeah, like it's I mean, September 2nd is coming up. It's not Labor Day. It's National Cotton Candy Day. It's not actually. I don't.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Which I mean, is
might all just go away.
Which cotton candy is flavored insulation, but it is what it, like. I just it's a trend that I see that I'm just like, okay, I accept it.
Yep.
I'm not gonna judge. I'm not gonna question why today is National Chili Cheese Dog Day when there's a separate National Chili Day. I'm not gonna question that. Because times are tough enough for me to be like, aren't there more important issues to discuss than National Chili Cheese Dog Day today? It's like, no, by all means, enjoy a nice chili cheese dog.
Please.
Sonic the Hedgehog would be proud of you.
Please enjoy it. It's probably better for the world.
Yes. Speaking of...
Are we losing out of frequency?
Oh, no. We're out of focus.
Fuck.
No.
My beautiful face.
Talk amongst yourselves.
The feds are getting us.
Wait, why did I get up? I don't know. Oh, God. What do we... Are you usually that blurry?
No, I just realized because I was moving it to get a better frame, and I didn't think about that. It said autofocus,
Damn
and
it's
didn't
easier,
autofocus.
It's easier on phones. You just fix it. No, we're still blurry.
That's good enough.
That's fine. We can tell, like,
Just crop the leg
it's
out.
not imposters that are doing
All
that.
right, today we're going a little bit retro with the 8-bit.
Yeah. We got a nice Super Nintendo filter on this one today.
Brings back a little nostalgia. Okay, so what topic were you on? Can you remember?
Yes. Well, speaking of, again, very rare, awesome things, was the fact that, again, things like E3 for video games was canceled, and San Diego Comic-Con, where it's like the day of good, like several days of goodness of all the nerdy shit that all of us enjoy. But like DC Fandom was a digital Comic-Con, and it was the most jam-packed full of content that I've seen anything like recently. The closest thing to Comic-Con I think we're gonna get, and it literally was just jam-packed full of projects that I'm super pumped for.
That's awesome.
And I can't wait for them to come out whenever the hell that is. Like Wonder Woman 84, which looks outstanding. We should have been able to see it 2 months ago.
Was that the release date
Like
before pre-COVID?
Like everyone
BC?
else would have been able to, but again, since we're a little bit slow in the process, the fact that we're still working on it because, again, we're still figuring
It's
out
an election year.
We're still trying to find out if a Nokia phone is tracking us in the N95 masks that we wear. We're still figuring that out. It feels a little heavy, if I'm being honest. When I put that on, I'm like, wait a minute. What was that vibration? It was like, no. That's it blocking out the bad vibes.
A whole Nokia.
Don't worry about it. So
I mean, at least your face would be protected if you had a Nokia phone.
from just about anything, including from spreadable illness to
Brian
gunshots
Urlacher
to RPG.
You hear about Brian Urlacher? Went nuts.
Brian Urlacher with hair.
Went full CTE. Never go full CTE.
Man, usually when the bald guy gets hair, usually he's neutralized. But like, there's something about a guy who I assume before, since he used like a Rogaine kind of thing, purposely shaved his head, because the last thing you want to see is a George Costanza lineup. Just naturally, because again, everyone associates it with George Costanza, a sexless icon. But instead, no, Brian Urlacher like uses. There's a disturbance in the force. There must be a squirrel.
I thought I heard a
But all of a
doorbell.
sudden, yeah, guy gets hair, gets angrier.
Yes.
You are. It's the opposite of the norm. You're very atypical of him, if I say so
Very,
myself.
very. And he's just
But anyway, back to
Comic-Con.
So they
DC.
showed off. Yeah, of course, Wonder Woman 2, which looks outstanding. They got the Snyder Cut, which I'm very excited for, which is essentially just going to be the much better version of Justice League. And
So what was all that about? Because it reminds me of like I remember like they refilmed the Suicide Squad.
yeah,
Is it a lot like that?
it's worse than the Suicides, because with the Suicide Squad they had like test screenings where essentially people were watching the movie, Joker's like hitting Harley and like being the Joker's relationship with Harley Quinn, which is abusive and toxic. And then I think a lot of people watched it and were like,
Uncomfortable.
I don't like this. I want them to be goals. So they were told, hey, so make Joker and Harley Quinn goals. So that's what happened, as well as this movie's not funny enough. So make it funnier.
That's true. Keep on.
And add on the fact that the one guy who edited the trailers, like the one with the Bohemian Rhapsody is the song, that sort of thing, made it like seem like a very grand old time. Everyone was like, "Hey, you did a great job editing that 2.5-minute trailer. Why don't you edit a 2.5-hour long movie?"
Make it a little more lighthearted.
Twitch was like, "Sure," but that went as well as could be expected, but that was the difference. It wasn't like the one guy, the director, was still there shooting the movie, so it was still him there. But Justice League is a whole uglier beast, where essentially from the get-go they're like to the director Zack Snyder, like, "Listen, man, we've had enough. Like, I understand we hired you because we wanted what you sold us, which was like this 5-movie arc, but for one reason or another, we don't want that anymore. Just because they didn't know what they wanted, and so they pretty much made like, all right, the runtime needs to be 2 hours. Then it's like, what the fuck? How is that gonna work? I'm introducing like 5 characters, 5 main Justice League members, and bringing back Superman from the dead, and all of these different things. But sure, I'll work with that. And then his daughter died, so he left. Pretty much the entire movie was done shooting, and so he left. So like all of post-production, like editing, working on VFX, things like that, was left to Joss Whedon, who did the Avengers, and is a ginger, pale Thanos, but without power and just kind of pathetic overall.
Just an angry man.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis, if you know.
And they were like, oh, cool, now that Zack Snyder's gone, let's remove most of his shit. Let's have Joss Whedon reshoot a lot of it, aka make it look worse, and and then essentially resell it as a funny old time. And what happened was a movie where you'd have one clear director, like, he's shooting at, like, in Greenland, is like shooting on location. It looks really nice, and then out of nowhere, a dude's like, if you put like a green screen here, and I stood up, removed the chair, and I shot a scene, and it's like that Greenland background. They put that in the movie. So in the middle of like this thing where they're clearly where they're filming, all of a sudden a guy's in front of a green screen, and he's just to say like a goof, just to say a single line that was meant to be like, hey, see, this is a funny movie.
Yep. They wanted it, I think. When I watched it, I've only watched it one time. And I think they disrespected Batman so much.
Oh, they made him a...
He's walking around as Bruce Wayne, saying, hey, I'm Batman, as Bruce Wayne. Doesn't do that shit.
He's acting like a dipshit. What is
like, he's walking around with Aquaman as Bruce Wayne, talking about...
Like, so you dress like a bat. It's like, hang on, what was that? Did he just say he dresses like a bat? Hey, well, Batman dresses like a bat. Is that guy Batman? Yeah, he looks about right. Holy shit. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, this entire like Nordic village knows who Batman is,
and they're like, how do we get Superman alive? Shock him.
Yeah, yes. Have we tried defibrillating? Have we tried normal things?
It was Frankenstein all over again.
Oh yeah, but it was like this Frankenstein project of just this guy who, again, you would forget he made the Avengers, because I like rewatching like the Avengers and like the older Marvel movies they still had some semblance of like real identity with whoever made it.
Yeah.
Including Joss Whedon, who was very good.
What ones did he direct?
He directed the first Avengers.
Ooh,
and then
great movie.
He was pretty much there the whole time, like for all the Phase 1 movies, to like kind of make sure like, hey, listen, the Avengers is the end game is the end game of all of these movies. We want to get to the point where we make an Avengers movie where all of these characters we introduced come together, and that's the movie I make. But he made sure he was there for the entire project. And then he made Age of Ultron, talked about how executives were messing him up, taking out a bunch of his stuff, and so he left. And so that was the last thing he did with the MCU, and then he kind of pops out of nowhere, gets involved with Justice League. And I think it was because he was going to direct another DC project. I think was probably the thing. It's like, all right, fix the Justice League movie, and then you get to do your own thing elsewhere. Well, then he got outed for being a director who seduces the people in his cast by using his feminist image to kind of as an icebreaker. And so ever since then, by his ex-wife, who said that he one day he came to her and admitted, yes, I have cheated on you. I have done this thing. I have essentially been a faux feminist to use that as a way in. And then he was like, well, we're getting a divorce. And I was like, you know what? I get it. As well you should. You are a strong woman. Oh, shit, I'm doing it again, aren't I? Damn it.
All that happens
sorry.
Die hard.
Yeah, sorry, hon. I'm working on getting better.
That's like a classic Joe Rogan. You know how like Joe Rogan's got like 4 different stories he brings up in every podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Or like
this reminds me of when I was 19 years old.
Yep.
It's like, all right, go on.
So there's this fish or something where like the females are way, 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 way smaller than the male. And what they do is like the male is this big old version of this fish, and it'll swim around, and then the females will be underneath it, and that'll be a harem of females, and they'll be the ones that will like he'll mate them with the eggs. The whole time though, there's another form of a male fish of this species that, if they're not big, they'll divert all of their like to make themselves look like a female, and so they'll go underneath that male fish and be with all of his women while he's swimming around protecting everybody. You know what I mean? So it's that fake. It's reminds me of that faux feminist.
yeah. So like essentially ever since he got tied into that, but that didn't stop him from again being very snarky when it came to people who were like, that would criticize the movie, but they would be very quick to blame Zack Snyder, which obviously, especially if you watch like the teaser trailer that they showed for the Snyder Cut, it's pretty much all new scenes.
That's what it looked like, a whole new fucking movie. Like, how did they do that?
So then we're like, wait a minute.
Did they cut and film a whole new movie?
Legitimately, yes. They took out majority of his movie, Zack Snyder's movie, because in his movie it was a whole bunch of things like, oh, Cyborg is the central main character.
That's what it was supposed to be, right?
Yeah, because
he was important.
Yeah, because Zack Snyder and the main screenwriter wrote to Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, and is like, listen, before we even write a bit about Cyborg, we want you to give us perspective on how Cyborg should come across. How do you want to sell this character? What would be authentic? And so the whole thing was based around that. Like, the whole movie is based around that. And then Joss Whedon, it just so happens that Iris West, Ryan Choi, who's I believe either the Atom or Blue Beetle, I forget which. And Cyborg's pretty much majority of Cyborg's family. All non-white people were plucked out. It was maybe it's a coincidence, but I am doubtful. And like that's so like
heard that.
Like, but again, it's I think because Joss Whedon was like, not only was he like, listen, not only am I gonna save this, I'm gonna make another Avengers tier like blockbuster.
Try to make Batman like a Tony Stark.
Yeah, well, like a
without a suit. Without a suit.
Yeah, like shit, like him falling, then like something's bleeding. I was like
Batman doesn't show no pain.
Just fucking stab me in the stomach. Why don't you?
That's why it was purely. I hate that movie. I can't even really remember anything else other than it just disrespected the character of Batman more than I've ever seen. And it hurt.
Especially after you have BVS, where this Batman is such a scary, giant individual. Like that's like, oh geez.
I do.
Like geez, like the fact that like his opening scene as Batman, not as Bruce Wayne, as Batman, is him saving a bunch of like human traffic victims, but they're staying in the cage because they know he's still up there. So they don't want to leave until he's gone, even though he saved them. That's how fucking terrifying he is. And then in this movie, it's like, well, I didn't think you'd resurrect me because you like me. I don't. Not. Yeah, it's like, what the what are you...
And we were promised black suit Superman.
What are you doing here? But that's, like, so...
With beard.
Especially as you're watching, if you watch the teaser trailer for it, you can see that this is not only... Because it's not an uber serious movie either.
It was supposed to be almost identical to Batman's Dreams in BVS, right?
Yes, because that's because the openings, like Darkseid is Darkseid's not the main antagonist, but like Darkseid sends out Steppenwolf, the main villain,
acting alone.
It's not just like, oh, he mentions him in a line. It's like, no, there's like a really cool scene where it's a bunch of gods, like Ares, like all these different characters fighting young Darkseid along with this thing, and it would be a really cool scene, but then they swapped it out with Steppenwolf, and then they made Steppenwolf's character design really boring, because before, like now it's like a super alien-like and like creepy.
He's almost built like Ultron, but like an alien Ultron.
Yeah, but like they turned him into... They gave him a face.
Not Ultron. Who's the protector from Thor movie? The big ass. Because the lines in Steppenwolf remind me of that giant.
Heimdall?
No, it's the protector from the trophy room. That in the first movie he gets sent to Earth.
Oh yeah, the one that looks like a Power Ranger.
Yes.
Like villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steppenwolf looks like a really badass version of that.
He looks like that exactly, and that like certain things like Flash going through the Speed Force, Cyborg losing his dad, like a whole lot of stuff that they removed for no real reason.
Nothing happened in that movie. Like no bad thing happened. They fought him in a remote location. Everybody lived.
Yeah. And they kept focusing on this Russian family who's just there for some reason, which it really is. You can tell that's a Joss Whedon thing, because if you rewatch the Avengers movies, there are random bits where like out of nowhere, they're battling the big bad, and then all of a sudden you're focused on this attractive young woman.
Oh yes.
Where it'll just be out of nowhere for no reason.
She was the waitress.
She has like one bit of dialogue, but she doesn't say a thing. It's just her running away. And
for like 4 different clips.
I legitimately think it's because he just wanted to be like, all right, that's good. That's good. Okay. Joss, why did we do that?
Come to my room afterwards. I gave her a shot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you're going to be big now.
You're going to be big now.
That is.
Now you owe me.
That is unless.
Remember we talked about?
Because of the implication.
Remember we talked about? We had a deal.
And then you have, and to add on top of the other shit that went on with Justice League is the fact that Ray Fisher mentioned that there was verbal abuse on set by Joss Whedon, by like main executives. So then you have all of this bad shit going on with this production, to the point it's like, well, no wonder like everyone's like, yeah, dude, I kind of want like the Snyder Cut to show up, including, do you remember the part where Flash like falls on top of Wonder Woman and then he like zooms off her and it's like a little embarrassing moment for a second? Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, refused to shoot that.
I love her.
So what Joss Whedon did was said, hey, Gal Gadot, stunt woman, get over here, get in costume, and you do it. So this guy was so adamant that this joke was so fucking funny that he's willing to piss off one of
your
the
lead actors.
One of your biggest actors in the movie, just for what?
The one who's had the best DC movie, other than I think the original Superman. Like the most like kind of
even like the people who are like, God, I fucking hate DC movies.
DCEU, that's because they've brought it out. They've brought it out. They've established a multiverse.
The people who are like, yo, ever since Dark Knight Rises, DC sucks. Yeah, which it's like I understand, like, especially if you compare it to a lot of MCU stuff, they go for different things, which is fine. If that's legitimately the only reason why is that it's not an MCU movie, then I'm quicker to criticize if that's legitimately your only reason for disliking it.
DC had so many great things going for them, and they just didn't commit. And it's like they had a great dark Suicide Squad, and then they tried to lighten it up.
Oh yeah.
And then they had an amazing BVS, but then it just. But your climax was Martha.
They cut it at its ankles because it went from a 2.5 hour. It went from a 3 hour movie that was cohesive. You get the entire picture of Lex Luthor's plan, and instead it's like, all right,
not a bad Lex Luthor. I don't like that he gets a lot of undeserved hate.
I love Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor.
Yes.
He like, especially because Jesse Eisenberg is such like a Michael Cera, like or at least was like way back in the day. People were like, that's not Michael Cera.
He was typecasted. Now he's...
but like that was the first time when I was like, it's a Lex Luthor who's a billionaire who you want to hit really bad,
and he knows it
because he's not a guy. He's not like the bald animated series Lex Luthor who probably could at least get a good uppercut on you. He's at least kind of built, even though he always wears the giant suit. But that's the thing. This Lex Luthor doesn't need a suit, doesn't need anything. He knows exactly what things to pull.
He's a swagger.
And that was the thing. Once you watch the 3 hour version, again, if you're like,
There's a 3 hour version out there?
Yeah.
Oh, it's out there.
Yeah.
I'm behind.
The 3 hour version is great. Yeah.
Different movie?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say it's a different movie. It's not like Justice League. It's just more like, for people, it adds more Clark Kent scenes. The opening with like in the desert.
Didn't he only have like 105 words or something like that during the original cut?
Like super. Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah.
Like, which he's not very talkative anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you watch Man of Steel. I just rewatched Man of Steel. He's not very talkative in that either.
The best Superman movie I've seen.
Oh yeah, I adore Man of Steel, and that was the thing. In BVS they added essentially like how like they add some stuff in the desert scene to kind of make more sense, because instead of it being, oh, the one guy shoot up all the random people that live there, and then they blame it on Superman for like inciting things. Instead, they bring out a flamethrower and they burn a bunch of corpses, so that it legitimately looks like something Superman could have done, versus just like shooting up a bunch of guys like in the theatrical version. Where it's like, well, I don't know why they blame Superman for that.
Like, he doesn't need to shoot.
But this one, it's like, oh yeah, no, Superman punches through a drone that's coming to blow up this entire town, and then they light these bodies on fire to make it look like hit through his heat vision that he did that. And it was actually very believable. And then they add in some couple pieces to the puzzle of Lex Luthor's grand plan to essentially make Batman hate Superman, and just keep inciting it to the point where Batman would be willing to kill Superman if he got the chance. And it kind of adds details of that, as well as gives Lois Lane more of a purpose, because she's analyzing this bullet that was in her thing that was like a very specific bullet, and there's scenes where it's like, oh, she finds out she has her own investigation going. There's a bunch of different things that, again, you add 30 minutes. Oh, and giving motivation for Clark, because Clark goes to Gotham and like interviews people, and everyone just talks about how like this, like Batman is terrifying. Batman is scary. Batman is violent. He brands people, which leads to them getting killed in prison.
Yeah, that was pretty badass.
Yeah, and they even add a scene where that happens, like the sex trafficker in the beginning, who has a brand on him. They show him going into prison and then him getting shanked because of it, but it's because it's part of Lex Luthor's plan. He tells an inmate to go do it, and then that's how that happens.
Okay, that's really cool.
So it's not a completely different. It's not like, oh, they reshot the movie. It's just they cut 30 minutes worth of stuff, and it kind of messes up with the
flow,
the editing, the flow. And you watch the 3-hour version. Again, it's 3 hours, but guys, you watched Endgame.
It's worth it.
You watched Endgame. You can manage 3 hours with BVS. And
if you made it 2.5 hours, what's that extra half hour?
Yeah. What's the extra half hour? Especially if at the end you watched a better movie. But that's the thing. And like I understand. I guess a lot of times I don't really get an answer out of people that hate the DC EU movies. They usually just say they don't like Zack Snyder, or they just say it sucks. But I
can give you an answer about why I don't like them.
Perfect.
So for me, the way the movie looked, for what's called Aquaman specifically, the way it looked, I was in love with. The way he looked, I was in love with. And then some of like the characters and I kind of liked the plot a little bit, like the way it went. It's just whenever they had a moment to be as cheesy and as corny as Disney princess movie as they fucking could, they did it.
Oh, absolutely.
And it went. It was almost a. What's that? There's one movie that's the corniest movie of all time, but it's like it's a Disney princess type character falls through a portal and she's like dropped in New York and she becomes a live action.
Enchanted,
yes. And it's just like that ditzy. And that's what you almost turned the Aquaman movie into. It felt like it was that corny at times.
Oh, absolutely! Like there are bits like they come out of the water and they play fucking, of all people, Pitbull's like cover of Africa, because they're literally in Africa. And I thought that was hilarious, but I completely agree. Because I think as long as they're aware, I think like that's, or it's like it's not cheapening dramatic moments.
It cheapened a lot of dramatic moments.
I could see that for like because there are definitely some parts where it's like very MCU like, where it's like, okay, this is a big moment, and then boop. Which is like, I think that's become the norm, unfortunately. Which was nice about Wonder Woman, and what looks good about Wonder Woman 2 as well is just very like their jokes, like but they're clever. They're not done to cheapen something. It's not subverting expectations through cheapening a moment. And I feel like that's usually the problem. Like you watch like the first. Again, I'll always go back to it. The original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. There's so much shit that I don't know if it's meant to be intentional, but at the same time, that dude loves cheese.
Yeah.
Especially if you watch the Evil Dead movies, where he's laughing with a bunch of demon heads and things like that. It's like it's such a weird experience. I feel like there's no way a lot of that stuff is not meant to be cheesy, and I think Aquaman was the same way. But I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can agree. I think Aquaman, out of all of the like the slate outside of like Suicide Squad, which again I really wish you could see what the original version was, if not just to be like, is it better, or was it kind of like, the project was kind of its heart was in the right place, but it wasn't right. I think Aquaman has the most room to grow because I think the writing was the weaker point. A lot of stuff like, there are a lot of scenes where they're having a conversation and an explosion happens, and like that's like, now we're in an action scene. And like there's definitely a ton of that. So like that would be the stuff, because again, visually, oh my god,
it looked great. Great.
How pissed off is James Cameron with Avatar 2 that he's got like a 30,000 gallon tank of water for mocapping water scenes? Then he's like, I'm sorry, Aquaman came out? Fucking bullshit. I've been making this movie for decades. But sir, Avatar 1 came out in 2008. I said what I said. Decades.
That's so funny. But that's just a bit like DC. It just feels like they always have. So what I was seeing. Still haven't watched Shazam yet.
Oh shit, yeah.
Or Birds of Prey.
Yeah, Shazam's in a similar boat to Aquaman, where I would say it's the closest to a comedy, because it's the fact that he's a young teen boy who becomes a 30-something-year-old muscular superhero.
Yep.
So then, like, there are a lot of mishaps with that.
Coming to age.
Yeah, but like it feels very earned, and it has the one kid from It, who's my favorite kid from It, the one who's like, did you watch It?
I watched It. I did. The newer one, right?
Oh yeah, the one where he's like he's always like he's super nervous. He has the overbearing mom.
Oh yeah.
He's like, these are gazebos.
Yeah.
They like those two play very well off together, and then Birds of Prey is like, I'd say almost like a Quentin Tarantino DC movie, like where it's like it's very bloody.
Sounds amazing.
It's very bloody. It's told out of sequence, so it'll be something where like out of nowhere you're jumped in the middle of this action scene. Then Harley Quinn will do a voiceover like, wait, back up. You guys have no idea what's going on.
Almost Deadpool-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then it's like, let's bring it back. But it's like, it's R-rated and it's gruesome, and like they curse, and it's a good time. I enjoyed Birds of Prey.
I heard good things. All good things. But it just felt like whenever they were getting their ass whooped by the tidal wave of the MCU.
Which that's the thing. MCU, I don't know how they do it. And the
Disney.
The MCU is like Netflix. Like where Netflix is like, season 6 of this show's coming out. How the fuck did you record that? Like season 5 isn't out yet.
Yes.
What do you mean season 6 is coming out in August? Like season 5 is coming out in June. But it's like they must have the same kind of like workshop that they like, make these movies through, because it's baffling.
Well, DC is like, I've seen like almost a redemption arc of like the movies that are coming up. I'm excited for all of them.
Oh yeah.
And then the Pattinson. That.
Oh my god. The Pattinson.
Just that trailer alone was better than any other Batman thing I've seen since Like to me, it was the third movie. Christian Bale he's in the best Batman movie. To me, it's Tobey Maguire. To me, in the best Batman movies.
I can see that, yeah.
But I fucking hate him as Batman, because his Batman, like, he looks the part. His Batman suit's great. He looks the part of Bruce Wayne. He talks it, but then when he gets to Batman, and it's that just ruins it. Fucking ruins it.
Batman Begins,
Vengeance. It's
Batman
so much
Begins
cooler.
was perfect with the voice, because it was just like, where are the others?
Yeah.
Like, and then
it wasn't
like,
forced.
Dark Knight's a little bit worse, but it's like, it's still okay. Dark Knight Rises, something happened that's just, it's super raspy. But yeah, like, again, you got, because Batfleck has the voice modulator, which sounds cool, and I'm surprised it's the first time that's ever been put in a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just Pattinson's just low, deep growl that's not...
It wasn't forced.
But yeah, it's I can clearly tell it's him.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got fucking Zodiac Riddler, like, who's just duct taping people's faces and talking like... do you ever see Split?
I've seen trailers. That's where he has like 84 personalities.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's like it's if anyone knows what I'm talking about. If not, look up like the Beast in Split, because he has voice like, you cannot defeat me. Like Riddler's fucking talking like this, and Paul Dano, who plays him, only plays weirdos.
Yeah.
He like literally in all of his movies, he's in a movie called Prisoners, where he plays just like kind of a red herring, where it's like, you are definitely the guy that kidnapped these children. And it's like, actually no, let me go even one step further. I think Paul Dano legitimately kidnapped these children. That's how good he is. That's how naturally creepy he's able to be. And I'm super excited for that. I'm excited for the fact that Colin Farrell, for one reason or another, chose to ugly himself again so that he could play a famously hot character, Penguin, who Danny DeVito made a sex icon.
Yes.
With his onesie and literal flippers. To which point, someone had to ask, Tim Burton, he's not a literal penguin. You don't. He's not literally a penguin. It's like if you called Napoleon Penguin because he's short and ugly. Like that's the point. But what if he was a penguin?
Have we asked this question?
Whatever, man. Yeah, sure. You're the genius. Let's go for it. And it worked, because Danny DeVito has no problem being disgusting. But I am very excited. Like, just the cast: Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, who for any Westworld fans is so good, and his voice is pitch perfect for any narration you would ever want. And the fact that it's a detective story. Like how long have people been wanting a detective Batman? It's just
no, because it's always been. We saw the creation of him. We saw him beating up bad guys.
Yeah.
We saw his, but now we're seeing. It's year 2, right? That's based off that comic. Yeah, we're having a lot of so if you're watching the video,
I was like, I am so
the
sorry.
camera work on this. We're working on things.
We are not tech savvy. So I am so
We're
sorry.
with the real fans.
You have to show this. Yeah, definitely put this in a different tab while you're doing your work or something.
The audio though.
We appreciate the audio is where it's at. We appreciate your support. But it's one of those things where you have all these different moments. Like The Dark Knight has Batman analyzing these different bullet wounds, like
that was
bullets,
pretty
things
cool.
like that. That was like very detective like, but then it kind of stops there. There's maybe like one or two other scenes that are similar, but there's always something missing. But then there's this one, who again, Robert Pattinson almost exclusively plays unhinged people, so I can only imagine how, especially with the way he beats, absolutely murks that one henchman.
Is that henchman? So is that a Joker tease?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they're dressing up as. I don't know.
The only thing I could think of was like Joker with that face paint, but it's like he's not.
I don't know. Yeah. Which I have a feeling we're gonna, because obviously they've casted like 3 or 4 villains, if not just to use for this movie, but for like, all right, here's Penguin for like a couple scenes, and then once Riddler is dispatched, Penguin is in the next one, or something, like is a main player in the next one.
I've heard the way they're setting it up is like that's Batman's universe basically.
Yeah.
And then DCU is his own thing. That's their Justice League, and then but that's Batman's universe.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
So yeah, no, it's like a Nolan trilogy thing. They get to do whatever they want for 3 movies at least.
Yeah.
And also did you hear they're doing like essentially Gotham, but within the Pattinson universe, with the guy who's directing and writing the Batman, and the guy who made like Boardwalk Empire, Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Like he wrote Wolf of Wall Street and like a bunch of other great movies. They're making essentially another Gotham where it's like based around a cop, but it's in that universe, and it's on HBO versus like network
series.
TV. Yeah.
Oh, so it's connected. So
it's
almost like Agent Carter for.
Yeah, in a sense. So it's it would be like, okay, you got the Batman trilogy, and then you have this show, which is focused on a cop who's in the middle of this uber corrupt police system, and it's essentially just about like all the temptations that come with, hey, listen, you can make some serious coin if you choose to bend the rules every so often for the right people, or do you choose to be the one good cop, which will lead a lot of consequences in its own right. And it's a show based around that kind of idea. So it's like, all right, so you have all of this Battinson content mixed with this just quality sounding content, and then you have HBO Max putting out the Snyder Cut, and then in potentially like continuing the Snyder stuff on HBO Max, depending, I'm sure, on how well the Snyder Cut does, because again, Ben Affleck looks great, which helps when you're dating the AI from Blade Runner 2049. That certainly helps. That certainly helped motivate you. But like, it's something where he's actually in shape, and he's gonna be in Flash. Like, he's legitimately gonna reappear.
Well, that's why DC's like having a redemption. Like, they reconcile their differences with Superman. Batfleck's back on board. It seems like they're Snyder, them and Snyder, and it's like they got that bullshit out, and it was like because they were trying to create this thing under the weight of MCU, and everyone held into that, and I feel like that pressure made a couple people in that organization crack.
And I think legitimately, like, the fact that it's been however long since obviously Black Widow got delayed, Eternals got delayed. There's just been no MCU stuff. So I have a feeling the fact that this is just kind of put out there and isolated, I think a lot of people aren't thinking like, wait a minute, this isn't like Black Widow, where it was pretty funny, but you know, this and that. It's just like, what do you think about this pitch on the Suicide Squad? What do you think about how the Snyder Cut looks and things like that? And people are like, you know, it looks really good. And that's it. It's not like, although of course there are always going to be people on Twitter that are like, why isn't Batman funny? To which point, Batman should never be funny.
There's literally a whole day in the comics dedicated to trying to make him laugh, and no one's been able to do it.
It's one of those things where I think since the influence of the MCU is just kind of muted at the moment,
and I love it,
is allowing like these like everything that was shown off at DC Fandom to feel like it's complete, like its own thing. Like, again, you can have Birds of Prey, which is a really funny movie. You can have the Suicide Squad with the guy who made Guardians of the Galaxy, and it sounds really good and sounds really entertaining. But then you have the Batman, which is more serious somehow than I thought it would be. And it looks like something that... it looks like Seven. It looks like the Zodiac movie. It looks like Mindhunter, seasons 1 and 2.
Both of them.
It sounds like both of them. That's how dark. And like, that's the thing. It's so refreshing, and it's just the reason why I think a lot of people came away from that event so pumped, and why I think it seems that like DC is on an uptick, because the whole thing is just why bother competing with the MCU by doing what the MCU does. The MCU does what it does. It will literally only change that fact when it stops working. Like, that's like, whether you're someone who has loved every MCU movie that comes out, or feels like, I rewatched Winter Soldier. I greatly enjoyed the Winter Soldier. That's probably my favorite, along with Infinity War, I think, because Infinity War had that sense of scale, purpose, seriousness. And a lot of the
to me, that was Civil War. That was the first one. Civil War is my favorite.
I got you. Which, yeah, because that was the sequel, right, to Winter Soldier, because it was the same guy.
And it was that same summer of BVS, and so it was like superheroes are fighting each other. Suicide Squad came out, and it was like it's Batman are fighting with each other, you know. And so it's like you had all these different things, and to me, the only one that did it successfully was Civil War in that summer, where it's like you actually had the friends fighting each other, and there was weight behind it. Whereas in BVS, they kind of made you convincing where Batman hates him, but it just felt like some things were cheap. Maybe in that longer cut, it explains it, brings it to wrap.
Because you understand it a little bit more in the longer cut when you watch it. Because like at that point, you have like it's really just reinforced into like Superman's head. Listen, the only way you're gonna fix, because he talks to the now widow of the guy who went in prison and got stabbed. Clark talks to her. And she says, like, a guy like this, you're not going to change his mind by talking to him. You know what's gonna what's gonna change his mind? A fist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just really reinforced in his head. This guy is perpetuating fear, causing the deaths of a bunch of these guys to the point it's like, I have to take him down.
Mm-hmm.
But again, because while a lot of people think the movies don't get Superman's still there at the showdown begrudgingly because Lex is holding his mother hostage and he's like, bro, I'm trying to convince you. Meanwhile, Batman's like, bro, I got 7 snipers. I got RPGs ready to go. I got tripwire. It's like, bro, listen. I don't care what you say. I'm going to use these fucking traps.
I did not come here to not use them.
So he's just waiting for him like, okay, all right, the tripwire didn't work. All right, let's keep going. And to which point Superman's like, oh, fuck it. And then just grabs him and throws him. And that's the good shit.
That is the good shit.
But it is one of those things where I just, as much as a lot of people I know just don't like the seriousness, which really throws me for a loop because the Nolan ones weren't funny. Like, Alfred, had a line every so often that was kind of humorous. Obviously, Joker was funny because Joker has his own dark humor. But none of the movies are funny. I guess I don't, and I legitimately think if the Nolan movies came out nowadays, I don't know that they would be much beloved. Because I think a lot of people, like, because again, think about, like, when the Nolan movies came out. Because, like, Nolan movies came out, what, like 2006?
Nolan, to me, those movies are the greatest, because those are the greatest superhero movies to me, over the Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire ones.
Yeah.
To me, it's just because Batman was in this world. Mm-hmm. Like, he could have been in this world that we're living in. It was like the closest thing you'll get to a real Superman. Where, I mean, not a real Superman,
well,
a real Batman.
Superhero
you know what I mean? Where it's
world.
like, he wasn't in the comic books. You know, Batman doesn't have powers, but this man takes hits from Superman. He takes hit. You know what I mean? It's something a normal human can never do. Whereas him and Bane are just 2 jacked up dudes going at it, and he gets his ass whipped.
Well, Bane's on gas painkillers
the
whole time. That's what the second he fucks with the painkillers, she's like, oh shit, I just punched a concrete pillar. That fucking hurt. Ow.
Yep.
And like the fact that like, oh yeah, no, in this universe, no, Bane got shot by like a missile by like Catwoman. He's dead.
Yeah.
Like it's not, like that was like, cause I remember like the part where Batman finds out that the one chick is bad, then he's like, I'm gonna kill you now. Yep. And then Catwoman busts in, shoots him with a missile, and he just fucking flies away. He's dead. Like, because that's what this universe is. He got shot in probably the arm, because he's not wearing that much armor.
Yep.
And he's dead. But, like, that's the thing. That's, like, but again, those movies, I think, ended 2011, 2012. That series ended. That was before the MCU was really picking up. That was before the Avengers. So,
damn.
So like, because again,
time was different.
You watch like the Thor, like when the first Thor movie came out, when like Captain America came out. I think a lot of people were like, "This is cool." I really like the end credit scenes. Iron Man was like the big one.
Iron Man was just great. Like that's why people don't know how much MCU's evolved. Because it's like if you go back and watch that first Iron Man, it's still in that very of that flavor of they were making superhero movies to fit in this world, and then whereas again eventually the MCU evolved into this big old world of superheroes and everything. But it was Tony Stark was the first Iron Man was Tony Stark could have been a real billionaire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it felt like.
And I do miss those days, especially because Robert Downey Jr. was in a real suit. They built a real suit, and that filming it was the biggest mess. You listen to the Jeff Bridges, who played the villain, talk about. He said it was the most expensive fan movie or student film I've been a part of, because it was such a mess because they didn't know what they were going to film every day. But again, it
came out amazing.
It blossomed into this huge favorite amongst a lot of people, and I think while a lot of people maybe the other ones didn't gravitate towards them as much. Incredible Hulk is, I'd say, overall underrated for the redheaded stepchild of the MCU.
Yeah.
Especially because they recasted him, so the guy in it is no longer Bruce Banner.
That's probably the worst That's probably like why it gets the most hate. It's just like,
It's just
we're
like,
willing to forget this.
Here's this other guy who, as well, because it popped in because when it came to the Avengers movie, Ed Norton, who played the Incredible Hulk, was like, "Hi, I have opinions," and then they're like, you can't have those."
You want to talk about how like the crazy ass fucking general that was trying to kill the Hulk the whole time had a redemption arc and like got to be a calm, like noble, like legislator.
It's like, get out of here.
When he came back in Civil War,
Civil
the
War.
fuck? How are you not locked up right now?
Yeah.
How many civilian lives did you danger?
I need to kill him.
I need to kill all of them.
He's trying to get with my daughter.
And then I'm gonna create one.
All right. I'm gonna create a limey Brit who's gonna all of a sudden he's gonna have equal powers, but be really ugly in comparison to Hulk,
And somehow be better.
and then and be kind of better at it. But yeah, no, just ever since then, it's just like, no more Hulk movies. I know that there's a rights issue where like 3 different people own the rights to the movies or whatever.
And that's tough.
Because Disney didn't own them yet. Disney didn't own the MCU yet. I think it was with Captain America. They sold, whoever owned it sold it to Disney. Which, oh my god.
Don't do
Can
that.
you imagine? Can you imagine doing that? Selling the MCU before the Avengers?
You hate to see it.
Oof.
You hate to see it.
That, I would say, is on par with Blockbuster denying or rejecting the bid to buy Netflix.
Also, Yahoo was Google wanted to partner with Yahoo, and it was like 100 million was the deal.
Yeah.
And Yahoo was like,
not a chance.
not a fucking chance.
Yes. Oh, Google, that failing brand. I don't think so.
Hindsight is 2020.
You know, people want to just Yahoo it instead of Google it.
Yahoo. Remember that shit?
Yahoo.
That brings back a
Yeah, oh,
nostalgia.
yeah.
I remember I didn't use Yahoo until ever, but then I remember everything else was blocked off in school, and you're trying to waste time on the computer. You can go on Yahoo and you can see like the 10 trending stories around the world.
Oh yeah,
and that's
like-
how I
that's how I
wasted
kept
time in
informed.
class
That's how I stayed informed.
because you couldn't get on Twitter or anything.
What were Reagan's policies? It's like a recent development.
I don't think we want to know that.
That was the 4th grade me was not ready to find out what.
That's why I love how like they put the memes that they put Reagan in the Call of Duty, and they're like, oh, we're gonna be selling crack, we're gonna be distributing crack
Yes,
to,
that's it.
in Baltimore.
We're gonna be planting FBI informants into the slums. Or there was like there's a Twitter account called "Can You Violate the Geneva Convention?" And it's for like, can you violate the Geneva Convention in this game? And then it had a picture of Call of Duty, like Cold War. It's like, do we even have to? Do we even have to say anything?
That's funny as hell.
But there's something else too. But like speaking of, it reminded me all the kind of, because I think a lot of what people dislike about the DCEU stuff is kind of a lot of the directions they take is kind of goes against a lot of people's perceptions when they look at a character. Which, to be like, what something that reminded me of recently, was, did you see all the backlash with The Last of Us, the sequel to? Yeah, so The Last of Us, for those who haven't played it, is a PlayStation game about it's essentially its goal is to rip your heart out. It's a zombie game, but it's really about the relationships between these people and kind of the horrible events that can occur in that kind of, if you brought a very realistic take on the zombie apocalypse. And the sequel was super highly anticipated, naturally, because the first one was much beloved. And about like a month before it was supposed to come out, the main plot points were spoiled, including footage they like someone leaked. So no one really knew who it was. Initial reports were like, oh, it was a disgruntled developer who was like, man, I had a shit time making this game, I'm gonna push it out there. And then while other people, there were different things. And a lot of people, again, obviously the problem with any plot leaks of anything, any art, is that there's no context. So it's the simplest, most unflattering version of whatever that thing is. So if it's like, oh, this character dies, and you play around with his corpse, like it's like, well, you like oh, it's like, oh, well, that sounds terrible. Like that, I don't like that. I hate this game. And it's like, I hate this game. It sounds dumb.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, oh, no, if you play the game, you don't play around with the, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, well, that's not accurate. And then The Last of Us 2 dealt with that quite a bit, because there were a lot of like controversial takes, and I won't spoil any because I literally just finished it last night. I got rid of all my muted terms on Twitter because that game was so widely spoiled across the internet that I am amazed. I played through the whole thing, and it took me like 3 months for both Mel and I to finish it, and we left unspoiled. I never knew what was coming, and it was a lovely thing. Which should be a lesson to all people who spoil things for fun. Don't do it.
You're an asshole.
Don't do it. You suck. Be better.
You whole asshole. Selfish.
But it sounded like a lot of what, because a lot of what the game was to me was it challenged people's beliefs in something. Like a lot of the characters in the first game that a lot of people loved, all of a sudden were cast from a different perspective, and you're like, holy shit, are we the bad guys? And it's like it's that kind of thing where it's like, well, just like how you were fighting off someone because you read them as a threat, and they became a threat, obviously, because you punch a guy in the head 3 times, he's going to get angry, and then he's going to be like, all right, listen, now I'm going to punch you in the head. And this one, it was like, they illustrated how these main characters who everyone loves may not be, it can be cast in an unflattering light. And all of a sudden, I think a lot of people didn't like that.
The Game of Thrones-esque.
In a sense,
you make you make characters real with flaws and everything.
Then all of a sudden, you're like, you know, like you don't want to say no, well, who's a good innocent character? Who's the good character? It's like, oh, well, they are. Well, they did this and that.
Pretty fucked up.
It reminded me very much of it. What it did was, for those who've watched Breaking Bad, for my personal experience when watching it, Walter White, the main character, is the bad guy.
They're not even close. Well, you could say the bad guy would be the whole reason he's. You could bring it way bigger.
The American healthcare system is the bad guy.
that was the point.
Yeah. The American healthcare system. All right, Walter's second.
Yes.
Because it's one of those things where since you're following him and he's the main character, and the events of the game started innocently enough, started with a motivation you can get behind. It starts to mutate, and things start kind of getting uglier, start getting a little grimier morally, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, bro, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And both The Last of Us 2 and Breaking Bad do it to the point where, you know, you start thinking about it, it's like, if this person wasn't the main character, would I like them? And the answer usually is no. They like, from anything from Breaking Bad, Last of Us, or How I Met Your Mother. Because no one wants to follow Ted, yet we do.
He's a full asshole.
Yet we do. Therefore, everyone just kind of tolerates him. And that's kind of a thing that I think more people need to be willing to do, is when they're being challenged with a different perspective or something creatively that maybe they didn't expect. I find that it's something where just be willing to take it wholesale. Don't have your knee-jerk reaction, which is, man, I have to play as this person who killed one of my, like, this character. Not a chance. I refuse. Instead, be like, okay, let me see what they're going for with this. And in the end, a lot of times you get rewarded for it, and it's something where you get to appreciate different arts.
Appreciate the story.
Yeah, you get to appreciate different stories, because it's something where a lot of really successful things in recent years have been unfortunately super simple, and a lot of them tell a very similar story, unfortunately. And I think when someone's willing to take a risk with a story or try new things, that doesn't mean you're not able to dislike it or anything like that by any means. It's just something where be willing to listen and absorb new art told in a new and interesting way, because you never know, it might breed a new appreciation for different aspects and may allow you to kind of, I guess, get more out of what you consume.
Open mind, and you, like who's the director? He directed an Asian film, but he was like, if you can get over that 2-inch barrier of subtitle, you
the director of Parasite. Yeah, because it was like a lot of people, were like, I want to watch Parasite, but I don't want to read. And it's like, bro,
you're missing.
Bro, show some dang respect. Parasite is excellent. It's on Hulu, by the way.
Like I remember, there's one of my best friends. I try to get him to watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. There we go. That was why was that so hard. And he's like, "Oh, dude, I don't watch animes." And then he ended up watching another anime somewhere else, and then came back to it and said, "Oh my god, I should have watched." You know what I mean? Now a huge anime fan. Mm-hmm. But like when you blanket term things, because it's like they'll see their friend talk about anime that looks like something they don't want to watch, and all of a sudden all anime.
It's like, all right, well, this particular one maybe isn't your bag, but try this one. This one has a really cool story, and that's usually the way things are. You're not going to like everything.
Entire genre.
Yeah, you're not going to like an entire genre. You're not going to like everything that's different or is definitely like meant to kind of get a reaction out of you, both like either love it or hate it kind of stuff. You're not always going to come out on the positive on those things. But I guess in the end, it's just always something where we're surrounded by the like creative projects, arts that we watch, listen to, read, play, etc. And if you box yourself up to the point where you can't, it's like, no, I'm not interested in that. Give it a try. And you know what? If it's something where like I'd see it's not my thing, if you give it an honest try and it's like it's not my thing, awesome. Then you've learned. You made an effort. You've made an effort, because I think if you shut your mind to things that are different, and
it's a domino effect for the rest of your life.
Then you'll keep doing it, but with less trivial things,
more important things with your life.
Yeah, and. So
everything overlaps. It is that serious. You know what I mean? Like, it is that serious.
Yeah. So I guess
open-minded.
I guess to wrap things up, we just want to.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can notice that we lighthearted today, and it's more of a kind of reevaluating. Are you participating to facilitate growth, or to, as J. Cole said it, or to get famous or to gather attention? Try to be on the right side of history, and we have a lot of people participating in negative energy. And we're seeing horrible results from it. So, on the uptick of trying to be on the positive side and breed positivity, got the little lighthearted today.
Yeah.
A little authentic to us, though. Be a little authentic to who we are. We are lighthearted people at the end of the day. Like to have a good time.
And we like you guys to have a good time. So
there are serious things out there. Yeah. Stay alert. Stay involved. But you enjoy your distractions. That keep you peace. Practice gratitude. It's good for the soul.
Yeah. And try new things, listen to new things, watch new things, listen to new music. Watch old movies that back in the day would be too old and something your dad would watch. Just take on something new, especially during these times when we feel like we're in too much of a rut. So thank you guys for listening.
Love you guys. This is the Basement Bloke Podcast. You can find me at Kevin31G on Twitter.
And I'm McKevin95 on Twitter.
And Andrew is something, but he's not even here right now.
Andy Vandy6, but who gives a shit? He's missing.
Not me. I do. I love you, Andrew. But next time, figure out this video shit for us, because we have... Woo!
This is Blurry Basement Blokes Podcast signing out.
The Blurry Boys.